Men are so simple and so much creatures of circumstance that he who builds on their illusions will find many to be deceived. Niccolo Machiavelli. Imagine you are standing in a grand theater. The curtains are drawn. The audience murmurs, restless with anticipation. They do not know what play will unfold, but they sit in their seats, believing they have chosen to be here, believing they have the freedom to applaud or to boo. But look closer. The stage has already been set. The actors have already memorized their lines. The ending has already been written. The audience believes they are free, but their emotions will rise and fall on cues carefully arranged by the director. This is the essence of power, not to give freedom, but to shape the very stage upon which choices are made. Humans cling to freedom as though it were oxygen. Strip it away completely, and they rebel. But the truth is more unsettling. We do not need true freedom. We need only the illusion of it. As long as we believe we have chosen, we are content, even if the choice was never real. This is why the most powerful strategists in history have never ruled through raw force alone. Force provokes resistance, but illusion seduces. A ruler who frames your choices controls you more completely than one who points a sword at your throat. You walk willingly into the trap, thinking it was your decision all along. Robert Greene writes, "The best deceptions are the ones that seem to give the other person a choice. Your victims feel they are in control, but are actually your puppets. Give people options that come out in your favor, whichever one they choose." This is Law 31. To control the options is to become the director of the theater of life, to hold the script in your hand while others recite their lines without realizing it. Think of it like a chessboard. The novice sees 20 possible moves and feels free. The master has arranged the board so that no matter which move is made, the novice edges closer to defeat. This is power in its purest form, not brute strength, not even persuasion, but framing reality itself. To do this, one must understand human psychology at its core. People want to feel autonomous. They want their ego stroked with the illusion of control. They want to choose, even if every choice is a leash. And so the master of this law never says, "You must." Instead, they say, "Do you prefer option A or option B? Would you rather follow me now or later? Would you rather win a little or lose everything?" The victim smiles, believing themselves free, but the game was rigged long before they sat down at the table. We call this chapter the Theater of Illusions, because history is filled with directors who staged such dramas. On the battlefield, one man arranged his army so that the enemy's choice of attack only led to annihilation. In Japan, a shogun-to-be staged betrayals so that rivals believed they were choosing honor when they were in fact choosing death. And in Florence, a secretary and philosopher revealed a dark truth, that freedom itself is a mask princes place on the face of power. Each of these figures understood what most never will, that freedom is not something people demand in its pure form. They demand only the comfort of choice, and that comfort is a weapon. And so, as the curtain rises, the stage lights reveal our first actor, a Carthaginian general whose genius was not only in swords and spears, but in illusions. His enemies believed they had chosen victory. Instead, they chose their own slaughter. The first act of our theater begins with Hannibal Barca, and the most devastating trap in the history of war. The year is 216 before Christ. The fields of southern Italy shimmer beneath the heat of the summer sun. The dust is thick, the air heavy with the sound of war drums, and the earth itself trembles with the march of 80,000 Roman soldiers. The Romans believe they are marching to victory. They outnumber their enemy nearly 2 to 1. They are the might of the Republic, disciplined, iron-willed, unbreakable. Their generals, swollen with pride, have chosen the field, chosen the day, chosen the hour. They believe the choice is theirs, and yet every step they take has already been written. The true director of this battle is not in Rome, but in Carthage's greatest son, Hannibal Barca. Hannibal understood something most commanders never did. Power lies not in brute strength, but in shaping the enemy's decisions before the battle begins. The Romans believed they were free. In truth, Hannibal had stripped them of freedom months earlier. He lured them into Italy by crossing the Alps, an impossible feat that left them humiliated. He harassed their armies with ambushes, forcing them to demand a final, decisive confrontation. He chose Cannae, a plain that appeared favorable for Roman infantry, but was a trap disguised as open ground. The Romans thought, "We have chosen to crush Hannibal here." In reality, Hannibal had chosen for them. Picture the battlefield as a theater. At the center, Hannibal's army, far smaller but arranged in a crescent formation. At the wings, his cavalry, hidden strength waiting for their cue. In the seats, the Romans, who believe they are the audience of this play, but are, in fact, the actors doomed to their lines. Hannibal had scripted every move. The Romans, arrogant and eager, launched their attack on Hannibal's center. They believed the choice was theirs: overwhelm the Carthaginian line with sheer weight of numbers. But Hannibal's men retreated in perfect order, bending backward like a bow. The Romans surged forward, thinking, "We are breaking them." Choice, the illusion, trap. As the Roman mass pressed into the crescent, they tightened themselves into a cage. At that moment, Hannibal gave the signal. His cavalry struck from the flanks. His troops closed from behind. The crescent snapped shut like jaws of iron. The Romans had no space to maneuver. Their freedom was crushed out of existence. By nightfall, nearly 50,000 Romans lay dead. It was one of the bloodiest days in ancient history. What happened at Cannae was not mere military brilliance. It was psychological mastery. Hannibal never forced the Romans. He guided them. He presented them with what seemed like freedom, attack, or retreat. Their pride, their confidence, their very nature drove them to attack. But both choices were already written into Hannibal's script. If they hesitated, they looked weak before their own senate. If they attacked, they walked into his jaws. This is Law 31 in its purest form. Control the options, and your enemy becomes your instrument. Cannae is more than a battle. It is a parable of life. How often do we charge ahead, believing we are choosing freely, when the terrain itself was chosen for us? How often do politicians, lovers, rivals, or manipulators set the stage so that whatever path we take, we are caught? Hannibal's genius was to understand that choice is a leash. It does not need to be pulled. The dog will tug at it on its own. Rome staggered after Cannae. Its allies trembled. Hannibal seemed unstoppable, and yet Rome learned from its defeat. They too began to master the art of framing choices, eventually turning Hannibal's own strategy against him. But the lesson endured. Every strategist after Cannae studied that day, not only as a military event, but as a law of power. Never fight the enemy directly. Shape the ground, shape the options, and let them destroy themselves. As the curtain falls on Cannae, the stage grows quiet. The illusion of Roman strength has been shattered, their choices revealed as traps. But our theater does not end here. Across the seas, centuries later, another stage is set, this time in Japan, where warlords clashed for supremacy. And one man, Tokugawa Ieyasu, understood Hannibal's lesson. He too offered choices. He too controlled the script. And with a single battle, he reshaped an entire nation. The year is 1600. Japan is fractured. Warlords, daimyo, rule in patches of land like actors fighting for center stage. The great unifier, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, is dead, leaving behind a young son too weak to hold the realm together. The country is on the brink of chaos. Into this storm steps Tokugawa Ieyasu, patient, calculating, watchful. He does not rush, he does not shout, he simply waits, setting the stage, arranging the pieces of the board until his enemies believe they are choosing their destiny. In truth, every choice they make leads to his throne. After Hideyoshi's death, Japan split into two great factions. The Western Army, led by Ishida Mitsunari, loyal to Hideyoshi's heir. The Eastern Army, led by Tokugawa Ieyasu, loyal to himself. Daimyo across Japan faced the question, whom shall we follow? They believed it was their choice. In truth, Ieyasu had already stacked the stage. He whispered promises of land to some. He threatened subtle consequences to others. And to the most ambitious, he offered the sweetest choice of all, the chance to betray. This was not freedom. This was illusion. On the misty morning of October 21st, the armies gathered in the valley of Sekigahara. More than 160,000 men stood ready. It was the largest clash in Japanese history. To the Western Army, it seemed simple. They outnumbered Ieyasu. They had the terrain. Victory appeared certain. They believed they had chosen the strong side. But behind the curtain, Ieyasu had already bought the loyalty of Kei-daimyo, Kobayakawa Hideaki most of all. The stage was set for betrayal. The battle raged for hours, steel on steel, cries echoing through the valley. The Western Army pressed hard, believing they were on the verge of triumph. But then, silence. From the hills above, Kobayakawa's men watched, thousands of soldiers, motionless. Mitsunari shouted at him to join the fight. Kobayakawa hesitated. His men waited. The battle hung suspended. And then the curtain fell. Kobayakawa charged, but not at Ieyasu. He turned on his own allies. The Western Army collapsed in panic. Other daimyo, seeing the shift, chose survival. They too betrayed Mitsunari, joining Ieyasu's side. What had seemed like freedom, the choice to fight for loyalty, for honor, had always been a cage. By nightfall, Tokugawa Ieyasu stood victorious. The genius of Sekigahara was not the clash of swords. It was the clash of options. Ieyasu had presented the daimyo with two paths. Remain loyal to Mitsunari and be destroyed. Switch sides and be rewarded. But here is the trick. Both paths led to Ieyasu, and because betrayal felt like a free choice, because men convinced themselves it was their decision, they accepted the leash willingly. Law 31 lives here in its purest form. Ieyasu did not force Kobayakawa to betray. He made betrayal the most attractive option. He did not order daimyo to defect. He framed the battle so that defection felt like freedom. This is the lesson. Never fight for absolute loyalty. Fight to control the stage. When people believe their survival, their ambition, their ego is satisfied by choosing, they will play the part you wrote for them. They will become your actors, your chorus, your puppets, and they will believe they are free. After Sekigahara, Mitsunari was executed, resistance shattered, and in 1603, Tokugawa Ieyasu was named shogun of Japan. His dynasty would last for more than 250 years, a quarter of a millennium of order, all born from a single day when he controlled the options. The story of Sekigahara is not only about war, it is about human nature. Think of it in your own life. A manipulator does not force you to obey. They let you believe you are choosing. A business does not offer you infinite products. They give you 2 or 3, so that whichever one you select, their hand takes your coin. A politician does not give you freedom. They give you a ballot of 2 names. Whichever one wins, the system remains intact. Freedom is an illusion. The trick of power is not to destroy it, but to write its script. The curtain falls on the misty valley of Sekigahara. The cries of betrayal fade, replaced by silence. The shogunate begins. But our theater of illusions has one more act. Not a general, not a shogun, but a man of letters who revealed the philosophy behind this law. A man who wrote of princes and republics, of appearances and control. He understood what Hannibal practiced, what Ieyasu perfected, that freedom is the mask of power. The curtain rises now on Machiavelli's Florence. The stage is no longer a battlefield. No drums of war, no banners waving in the wind. Instead, the sound is of murmured voices in council halls, the scrape of quills against parchment, the whispers of merchants and nobles in the streets of Renaissance Italy. This is Florence at the dawn of the 16th century. A republic in name, but a theater in truth. A place where appearances mattered more than reality, and where freedom was the costume worn over manipulation. And at the center of this stage stood a man who watched, who recorded, who understood. Niccolo Machiavelli. Florence prided itself on being free. Its citizens voted, its councils debated, its voices rang out in piazzas. But beneath the mask of liberty, the city was ruled by power plays. The Medici family, the great bankers of Europe, had been expelled. In their place rose men who claimed to protect the Republic. Behind them, shadows moved, factions scheming, alliances shifting, promises whispered in smoke-filled chambers. To the people, choices seemed endless. Support this faction or that. Vote for this measure or another. Follow this leader or oppose him. But as Machiavelli watched, he saw a darker truth. None of these choices mattered. The stage had been set, so that every choice led to the advantage of those who controlled the script. Machiavelli was not yet the famous author of The Prince. He was a secretary, a diplomat, a servant of the Republic. He traveled to foreign courts, spoke with kings, popes, generals, and everywhere he went he studied one thing: how men use freedom as a mask for power. He saw it in Cesare Borgia, who allowed cities to choose their own governors, then replaced them with his own men when they faltered. He saw it in Florence itself, where the illusion of voting distracted the people, while true power remained with a handful of elites. And in his writings, he stripped away the costume and revealed the skeleton beneath. In the Discourses, Machiavelli writes, "The wise prince never leaves freedom in the hands of others." This is the heart of Law 31. To let people believe they are free is far safer than forcing them into obedience, because the illusion of choice binds more strongly than chains. Think of it this way: a man who is forced will resent. A man who is persuaded will regret. But a man who chooses will defend the choice as his own. And so the manipulator never says, "Do this." He says, "Which of these do you prefer?" Both roads lead to the same destination. Machiavelli himself witnessed countless examples in his city. When Florence debated alliances with France or Spain, the choices seemed fierce and urgent. But behind closed doors, the leaders ensured that whichever side was chosen, the city's merchants continued to profit. When citizens voted on reforms, the choices seemed dramatic: expand the council or restrict it. But the ruling families ensured that their men sat in every chamber regardless. This was Florence's genius, a republic where freedom was real enough to satisfy the people, but false enough to protect the elite. Machiavelli understood that liberty is a mask rulers wear not out of kindness, but out of cunning. People revolt against tyranny, but rarely against freedom, even false freedom. To a ruler, the mask is more powerful than the sword, because the mask convinces the people to applaud while they are shackled. This is why Machiavelli admired Cesare Borgia. Borgia allowed men to believe they chose loyalty, but behind each choice lay violence and fear. He was both director and executioner. And this is why Machiavelli's writings still chill us. He did not invent cynicism. He revealed it. He showed us that every council, every election, every alliance can be theater, a play staged for the audience of the people, while power moves behind the curtains. Machiavelli's Florence is not ancient history. It is a mirror. Look around today. Voters choose between two parties, but both serve the same system. Consumers choose between brands, but both belong to the same corporation. Workers choose between jobs, but all feed into the same hierarchy. The mask has changed, but the principle remains. The illusion of choice is the most enduring leash humanity has ever worn. What makes Machiavelli so terrifying is not that he praised this law, but that he described it without flinching. He tore away the illusions and told princes what they already practiced in secret. If you wish to control men, give them choices, but make sure every choice serves you. It was the philosophy Hannibal lived on the battlefield. It was the art Tokugawa perfected on the plains of Sekigahara. And it was the truth Machiavelli codified in words, ensuring it would echo for centuries. The curtain falls now on Florence, its councils silenced, its masks of liberty shining in the candlelight. Hannibal has shown us the trap. Tokugawa has shown us betrayal. Machiavelli has shown us the philosophy. And as the stage grows dark, we step away from history into ourselves, into the psychology of choice, the comfort of illusion, the chains we do not see because we call them freedom. The final act is not history, but reflection. The curtain close, where the lesson of Law 31 is revealed in full. The stage grows dark. The actors have left. The audience stirs in their seats, whispering about the play they have just witnessed. And yet even here, in this silence, the lesson lingers. They were never free. The laughter, the gasps, the tears, all had been arranged by the director's invisible hand. The applause at the end, even that had been written long before the curtain first rose. So it is with life. So it is with power. What unites Hannibal, Tokugawa, and Machiavelli? They lived in different lands, in different centuries, facing different enemies. And yet each mastered the same law. They controlled the stage of choice. Hannibal bent the Romans into a trap they believed was victory. Tokugawa turned allies into betrayers by making betrayal feel like survival. Machiavelli stripped away the mask of liberty, showing rulers how to let men believe they were free while binding them with invisible chains. The genius of these men was not brute force. It was foresight. It was patience. It was understanding that people will defend the choices they believe are theirs, even if those choices were scripted by another. The power of this law rests on a single truth about human beings. We crave the feeling of autonomy more than autonomy itself. A man who is forced will resist. A man who is tricked will eventually resent. But a man who chooses, even if the choice was false, will cling to that choice as though it were his own child. This is why illusion is stronger than compulsion. It satisfies the ego. It blinds the mind. It allows people to walk willingly into chains. Psychologists today call this the paradox of choice. Give people too many options, and they collapse in anxiety. Give them only one option, and they rebel. But give them 2 or 3, framed carefully, chosen by you, and they feel liberated. Offer a child broccoli or carrots, and he forgets he has no choice of candy. Offer a customer 2 colors of a product, and he forgets the store owns the sale either way. Offer a nation 2 parties, and the people forget. The structure remains unchanged, whichever one wins. This is the eternal trick of power. The lessons of Hannibal, Tokugawa, and Machiavelli are not confined to emperors and generals. They apply to every arena of life. In business, do not overwhelm clients with endless products. Frame their options so that no matter what they choose, the advantage is yours. Apple did not flood the world with 100 iPhones. They released a few and controlled the conversation. In relationships, do not demand obedience directly. Instead, frame choices so your partner or rival believes the decision is theirs. A manipulator does not say, "Do this." They say, "Would you prefer to do it now or later?" In negotiations, never allow your opponent to present the terms. Arrive having already scripted the outcomes. Offer them freedom while knowing you profit whichever way they lean. This is not cruelty. It is strategy. Power belongs not to those who shout the loudest, but to those who write the script silently, invisibly. But if you fail to grasp this law, you become the Roman at Cannae, thinking your strength will save you as you march into the jaws. You become Ishida Mitsunari at Sekigahara, loyal to a cause, but blind to the betrayals already bought behind your back. You become the citizen of Florence, casting your vote with pride, while the ruling families laugh in candlelit halls at the choices they placed before you. To ignore this law is to live as an actor, reciting lines written by someone else. Some may ask, is it not immoral to control others in this way? To offer false choices? But morality is itself a mask, another illusion, another framing of options. Rulers tell citizens they must choose between safety and freedom. Religions tell believers they must choose between obedience and damnation. Societies tell individuals they must choose between conformity and exclusion. The truth is simpler. Power has always belonged to those who understand the theater, and weakness has always haunted those who confuse illusion with liberty. Remember this: you cannot escape the theater. We are all actors on someone's stage. The question is only whether you sit in the audience, clapping at choices already scripted, or whether you step behind the curtain, into the shadows where the director's chair waits. Hannibal, Tokugawa, Machiavelli, they chose the chair. They chose to write the script. And so must you, if you would master power. The lights dim, the seats empty. The curtain falls one last time. The law is clear. Control the options. Never give true freedom. Let others believe they are free, while their every choice serves your design. Because in the theater of life, there are no free choices. There are only scripts, and the question of who writes them. Final words to the viewer. And so I leave you with this. Will you walk through life as the Roman, the betrayed daimyo, the citizen of Florence? Or will you sit in the director's chair, framing the stage so that others act as you wish? The illusion of choice is eternal. The only true freedom is to master it yourself. Like, subscribe, comment, or don't. You are the master of your own life.